This is CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Chris Ensing. Meg is away. Here's what we have for you tonight. Disappointment after Windsor decides not to ease residential zoning limits, and the mayor defending a decision he says is about quality of life. A company known for restoring old automobiles gets the keys to the Paul Martin building. Find out what they have in store this evening. And new rules on the sale of booze as Ontario modernizes the retail market. There's disappointment with council's decision not to allow more housing units on residential lots. The decision has effectively killed Windsor's chances at receiving $40 million from the federal government. But the mayor says this decision is about protecting people's quality of life. Askin Avenue, a sleepy street in South Windsor lined with single-family homes. To help solve the housing crisis, the city is being asked to change zoning laws for all residential areas to allow 4 units on one lot instead of 3. But council says that's not going to happen.
We don't want all of a sudden a fourplex being built on any residential property on Askin Street or in Forest Glade or in Riverside or East Riverside. We think that that is an appropriate type of development in certain areas. And so that's what we've said back to the federal government.
The city should expect their application to be denied, says this policy expert.
So many other municipalities who want this money. I think that the feds will just say, okay, well, you're saying no, and that's well within your rights to, but we'll just look somewhere else. But, Windsor's having a challenge right now. If we look at the housing targets that the Ford government has set, the latest data shows that they're only about, Windsor's only about 32% of where they need to be on those targets. One of the lower municipalities in Ontario.
Very disappointed. I think our city needs more housing, especially the missing middle housing. We're not talking about $1 million, $2 million home. We are talking about middle missing part, right?
By refusing to allow 4-unit housing options in all residential areas, Windsor is leaving $40 million in federal funding on the table. That could be used for public transit, new roads, or sewer systems.
Imagine what this $40 million could do for our city. How many housing projects it can help. I just can't see the reason why we should do anything to risk that. $40 million. I think this is a big step backwards. We're not moving forward, we're moving backwards.
I look at it as a sign of respect to the people who have their largest investment, and for most of us, it's our home. People who've made an investment, who've built a house and chosen a neighborhood based on the characteristics of that neighborhood. And I think it would be disrespectful for us to come in as a city council and say, you know what, we've changed our mind now. We can have a fourplex next to you. Sorry, things have changed, and we're not going to consider your opinion.
Council is committing to changes in the official plan to allow higher density housing in some areas. This home builder says that's a key part of bringing down housing costs.
But at the end of the day, the focus still has to be on what is the absolute necessities of red tape involved with building and how do we eliminate a lot of the white noise that's behind there.
Nearly 2 months after a ransomware attack took down hospital system facilities in Windsor, Essex, Chatham, Kent, and Sarnia, they say that they're on track with their recovery process. But at least one patient who spoke with CBC's Jennifer Lagrassa says that they expected hospitals and government to provide more support.
Told she might have a brain tumor, Sarnia resident Anne-Marie Diarujo was scheduled for an MRI early November. Days before, her appointment at Blue Water Health was canceled as the hospital was dealing with a ransomware attack.
I wasn't okay to just sit around and wait for an indefinite period of time.
She says the hospital gave her little guidance on where else she could go. So she took it into her own hands, calling at least 6 hospitals in southern Ontario. Guelph General Hospital got her an appointment within days, and her results came back clear. But the situation has left her feeling defeated.
I was really disappointed, in how this is being handled. I understand that it is not the hospital's fault, that this is not their doing, but in how it's being managed and the impact and repercussions for patients and the people that they serve in our different communities. That's where I've been really disappointed in the leadership, the response, the support. It's just not been there.
In a joint statement today, the hospitals and IT provider Transform gave an update. They say this situation has been difficult, causing disruptions to the high quality you expect at our organizations. It said that as of last week, charting is back online. Blue Water Health says it has run into complexities with the process, so its system will come back on slowly. It says there's an intense concentration on network security and ensuring that an attack like this doesn't happen again. But what Dia Rougeau wants to know is how patients can expect to be cared for if it does.
If it were to happen, what are you going to do the next time? What is their plan to support and guide patients who would be impacted by that? Because it's not fair for people to be left to their own devices.
CBC News asked Blue Water Health for an interview, but it did not respond. The hospitals are still facing a $480 million class action lawsuit, which was filed by another Sarnia resident last month. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
A new luxury hotel is expected to open inside an iconic downtown building. Chatham-based developers are going to be investing more than $30 million to retrofit the historic Paul Martin building.
When we explored the different opportunities and the impact that they would have downtown, this one we felt would have the highest impact in terms of the return on the investment. And, you know, to know that there is finally, having gone through a pandemic was not easy. It delayed everything by 2 years. And so being on the other side of that and still being able to work with these folks and see that they're still interested in this opportunity, I think it makes all of City Council feel great because we know that it's not one solution to solving the woes that we talk about downtown. It is multiple solutions.
Now, the city acquired the building from the federal government 3 years ago for $1 and has since been using it as a home for the Windsor Public Library. Dilkin said that the city has 4 to 5 years to decide where the library's permanent location will be. They've transferred the Paul Martin building now over to the developers. They say that the first guests are expected to stay at the hotel in the spring of 2026.
This building excites us. I mean, it's a grand building, and we just believe we can have so much fun here and create a good business and a good company. And we like the hotel business and the industry, and my daughter and our hotel manager are really good at this. They know the business very well. And so I'll continue to sell some used cars and antique cars, and they will run a hotel business. And I enjoy the art, the design, and the creativeness of it all. So that's really what excites us.
That's the same group that does retro suites in Chatham, Kent. The Windsor Police Service Board has sworn in its first ever Muslim chaplain.
I, Hassan Riki, solemnly affirm that I will not disclose any information obtained by me in the course of my duties.
Chief Jason Belair says Ricky has experience in youth counseling, public counseling, and conflict resolution. He's replacing Reverend Chuck Congram. He will be retiring in January. The 38-year-old vet says he's going to, the 38-year vet says that he's going to miss the relationship that he's had with fellow police officers and with members of the community. Congram says it was his goal to expand Windsor Police's chaplaincy.
And so we just began to search our ways primarily through the recommendation of police officers themselves. And that's how Hassan came to be with us, is a Muslim police officer said, what about a Muslim chaplain? And gave us the recommendation of the name.
Students at a Lakeshore High School are getting hands-on education with electric vehicles. St. Anne Catholic High is the first secondary school in Canada to have a Switch EV kit in its curriculum.
What we're seeing here today is the Hyper 9. It's from the Switch EV lab in California. Everything is open and exposed so that the students can see all of the components. The idea is for them to assemble it, get the car running and driving, do some testing, do some programming, learn about the basic electrical fundamentals. It's all about sparking interest and creating opportunity.
The new learning tool allows students to put together a fully functional three-wheeled electric vehicle. Students enrolled in the automotive class will spend a semester assembling the Switch EV. They're going to test out that completed vehicle in the school's parking lot when it's finished. The Switch EV is powered by a 96-volt lithium-ion battery with a top speed of around 145 kilometers an hour. It's classified as a motorcycle capable of accelerating from 0 to 95 kilometers an hour in 6 seconds. Pizzuto said that safety is top priority inside of the class. Today's unveiling at St. Anne Catholic High was attended by a representative of the coming Nexstar EV battery plant.
The investment, exposure, and education of students in the STEM curriculum is key to our industry, and it's the future of the EV industry in Canada. We will be employing over 2,500 Canadians, and there'll be a lot of spin-off jobs coming from our project. Nexstar Energy is very happy and fortunate to be part of this great community. And also we look forward to having many students from this curriculum join our team in the near future.
The municipality of Lakeshore is going back to the drawing board with its greenhouse bylaw. The province and the county have rejected the town zoning setback requirements, saying they're too restrictive. Dale Molnar has more.
The town of Lakeshore has drafted a zoning policy for greenhouses that prevents them from being built less than 550 meters from a house. The province and the county say that setback and other setbacks severely limit the ability of greenhouses to locate on agricultural land, something they are entitled to do under the law. But the town put those limits in place to protect homeowners and others from the noise, smell, and light pollution from the greenhouses, as well as other issues. Residents are now concerned any new regulations won't give them that protection.
The greenhouses are literally like hundreds of meters away from us already in our ward. So, we can see the beautiful pink and purple skies already, and we don't want them in our backyard.
And they say the greenhouses should have a special designation under the official plan rather than just agricultural.
The province still considering that these are a farm agricultural operation, in which they technically aren't. They are commercial, large-scale greenhouses.
The town would like to locate them in an industrial-type park away from housing.
We're talking about leading the industry around the development of a business zone where this type of activity can occur. So we're not foolish enough to think that, it's just a no answer.
The greenhouse industry spokesperson says the greenhouses have to be where the hydro and water is, but he says he's not opposed to being in an industrial type park.
What we're saying is that we want to be partnerships with these townships, create reasonable expectations, but also desired outcomes from both parties. We don't want to cause additional harm or any kind of nuisances to the township or the residents in those townships.
Lee also points out the greenhouse industry brings needed jobs to municipalities. Bailey expects it will take until February to get this all sorted out. The residents say they want input into the process. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
It's official, even though it's still 2 years away. Premier Doug Ford announcing that all convenience stores and grocery stores in Ontario will be permitted to sell beer, wine, cider, and pre-mixed cocktails starting in 2026. And for the first time in this province, private outlets are going to be allowed to compete on price. Our coverage begins with senior reporter at Queen's Park, Mike Crawley.
The bottles of wine in this convenience store aren't for sale yet. They're just for show, as a backdrop to the announcement by Premier Doug Ford.
We want to make sure that we're in line with everyone else in the world and across Canada. Being able to go into a store, you're buying a steak, grab a bottle of wine, and go home. That's a good thing.
Right now, Ontario has per capita fewer retail shops to buy alcohol than anywhere in Canada. Once Ford's plan kicks in, only Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador would have more.
We got to treat our people of Ontario like adults, and that's what we're doing.
The changes mean nearly 7,000 convenience stores in the province could get licensed to sell, along with another 1,800 grocery stores. And for the first time in Ontario, those privately owned stores would be allowed to sell at lower prices than the LCBO.
We're moving forward today with dynamic and competitive pricing. This is a good day for the consumer to have choice, to have convenience, and to have competition.
Sales will be permitted from 7 in the morning till 11 at night. Stores will have to give 20% of their beer shelf space to Ontario craft brewers, and 40% of their wines in stock must be local.
This is a new chapter in Ontario. It's fantastic.
While they expect to see some reduction in the LCBO's retail sales, government officials say they don't expect its overall revenues to drop significantly because it remains the only place to buy spirits, such as whiskey or rum, and will be the exclusive wholesaler for booze.
I'm very proud of how the LCBO is running right now. It's a great profit center that we can take the profits from there and invest it into healthcare and education.
The privately owned beer store stays alive and gets a 5-year deal to be the main distributor of beer to all the new retail shops. It will also continue running Ontario's deposit return program for cans and bottles.
I'm not a drinker, but I'm tempted to go back there, crack up one of those, whatever they are, ciders, and take a little swig.
Don't be tempted to celebrate too quickly. None of this change is due to happen until January 1st, 2026. Mike Crowley, CBC News, Toronto.
The Canadian Real Estate Association has released its latest data for home sales in November. The numbers show that home sales fell 0.9% as the average price inched higher compared to a year ago. New listings down nearly 2% month over month, and the average home price in Canada now just over $640,000. That's up 2% from 1 year ago. We take a live look outside as we continue to enjoy this mild weather. Still a little cold outside, but it's nothing we haven't seen before. We'll have Nick breaking down the full forecast when we come back. Nick Sirkovich joins us live now for a look at the weather. I gotta say, the only thing we're seeing in the sky, just some beautiful sunsets, man. It's been cloudy enough for that sun to pop through, and we've just been watching some glorious action over on the river there.
And you know, every time I pop in, the weather turns good. Well, most of the time. Yeah.
It's a good trend.
I try, yeah. We're going to keep that going, actually. Heading into tomorrow to finish off the week. Maybe some people taking a long weekend. I don't know. It's going to be a nice way to finish off this week as we head into December 15th. Now, keep that in mind, December 15th, when I show you the temperatures in the long range. 3 degrees is where we're sitting right now. Again, as Chris was saying, things are kind of clearing out here. So sunshine in place. There is another system that's going to roll in here, but in advance of it, we've got mild temperatures, double-digit temperatures in the forecast for tomorrow. There is a look at the satellite imagery. Now, this relies on at least part of this anyway relies on some light, so you'll notice it kind of fades away. But cloud cover generally starting to clear out here. Here's a look at the forecast through tonight. Clear skies. We'll see temperatures dip a little bit close to that 0 mark just because the sky cover is clearing out. But we've got a fight with this warmer air that's beginning to push in as well, and that's going to be the story as we head through tomorrow. You can kind of see just behind me there, system that's approaching. In advance of that, we'll get these westerly winds that are going to pump in some warmer air. Cloud cover starts to move in tomorrow night. So later in the day, once the sun is set, we've got cloud cover starting to roll in advance of this thing. And then Saturday, generally looking at pretty dry conditions, maybe the risk of a very isolated shower, likely closer to sort of Lake Huron. But for the most part, we're just talking about cloud cover on Saturday. It's not until Sunday where the rain showers begin to move in. By Sunday morning, we've got rain, and we're looking at about 10 to 15 millimeters of rainfall in the forecast for Sunday, but it's rain, not snow. In terms of winds, we've got wind gusts that'll be about 40 kilometers per hour through the overnight period tonight into tomorrow. Begins to sort of ease off as we head through the later part of the day tomorrow. So not too bad in terms of the winds here as well. Temperature-wise, now I mentioned that the overnight lows, just because of the clearing sky cover, we're going to see temperatures around the 0 mark, probably just a little bit above that in the city of Windsor itself. But as we move through tomorrow, we've got double-digit highs here. And actually, my apologies, that rain shouldn't be there. I meant to take it out. It is sunny for tomorrow. We've got sunshine in the forecast for tomorrow, 11 degrees, double digits. Temperatures slowly begin to taper off there. Cloud cover moving in on Saturday. Sunday, that is actually rainfall. This one was an accident. That one is real. And then it kind of tapers off close to the 0 mark as we head through the beginning of next week. Making sure you're paying attention.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's 100%. That's how people know it's live and it's happening for real here.
That's right, yeah.
Before we let you go, man, we've been talking about snow, we've been talking about rain, and I keep thinking about, is it going to happen before we get that little holiday break? But then I think about last year when it came all at once.
Yeah, well, this is it, right? And I mean, you know what? I was looking at it, Chris, and I'm not seeing anything leading up to Christmas. We still got a couple weeks here, so, you know, things can change.
We'll keep our eyes out. Thanks for this, Nick.
All right, you bet.
All right, and coming up, we have a story about food poisoning and something to watch for. That's next. Scientists in Canada are among the researchers trying to track the recent deadly Salmonella outbreak. 5 people have died in this country, 3 in the U.S., linked to contaminated cantaloupe. But finding the source isn't so easy. Tashana Reed got special access to labs that are doing potentially life-saving work.
Inside this lab, scientists race to confirm potential foodborne illness, searching through harmful bacteria detected in stool samples.
This was a unique organism that we'd never seen before. We have a whole bunch of machines that are dedicated to try and identify the genotype of the organisms we see.
Their work begins when samples are collected from sick patients. The lab came across one of 3 rare strains of Salmonella, linked to tainted cantaloupe that killed at least 5 people in Canada. The next step was genetic sequencing, taking DNA from the bacteria.
Within a couple of days, we were able to identify the fact that this was happening not just here, but all over the place.
This is just one piece of the puzzle, another tracing the source of infections. To do that, patients are interviewed about their travel history and what they ate.
And this is where we begin the process of testing the cantaloupe.
Then food is investigated at microbiology labs, similar to this one in Ontario.
We know that the contamination is on the surface of the cantaloupe.
Scientists create special conditions to allow the contaminated food to grow more bacteria. Then they isolate it.
Each little dot, that's a colony of Salmonella bacteria.
If they confirm it's Salmonella, next is DNA sequencing, which can tell them if it's antibiotic resistant or has been present in other outbreaks.
The DNA fingerprinting approach has been increasing in its ability to effectively determine the source.
Finally, the 2 investigations are compared.
And each of those stripes represents a mutation.
In this case, it was an exact match between the bacteria found in the patients and the bacteria in the cantaloupes. How those cantaloupes were contaminated in the first place is still unknown. So is the extent of the outbreak. Scientists say it could take years to get the full picture. Tashana Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
And finally, tonight we take you to the world's southernmost marathon. Here's what one of the winners had to say after making it to the finish line.
That was the hardest marathon I've ever won, I can tell you that. But it was beautiful. I mean, how can you compete with this? This is just insane.
The Antarctic Ice Marathon took place yesterday, a few hundred kilometers from the South Pole. Even penguins don't live that far south. 68 runners had to endure sub-zero temperatures and strong winds. 2 Americans won the women's and men's marathon. Stephanie Estridge covering about 42 kilometers in just over 5 hours. Michael Higgins there completing it in 4 hours and 1 minute. That's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And The National is on tonight at 9 on CBC News Network. You can also watch that on CBC Explore and CBC Gem. Thanks so much for watching. Have yourself a good night.